I thank the Prime Minister for his answer. The terrible news last night came as we are still mourning the terrorist attack on Israel last week. Jews taken hostage, mutilated, slaughtered. And yesterday I met the families of some of the British hostages held by Hamas. Every minute of every hour of every day, they hope for good news, but fear the worst. They know the lives of their loved ones are in the hands of murderers. It's unimaginable agony. Israel has a right, a duty, to defend itself from Hamas, keep its people safe, and bring hostages home. But isn't it clear that if Hamas had a single concern for human life, a single concern for the safety of the Palestinian people, then they would never have taken these hostages, and they should release them immediately.
Well, Mr. Speaker, it is important consistently for us to remember that Israel has suffered a shockingly brutal terrorist attack, and it is Hamas and Hamas alone that is responsible for this conflict. Our thoughts are rightly with those who have been taken hostage and their families. The distress they are feeling will be unimaginable for all those affected. I will be meeting with some of the families and offering them all the support of the British government to get their relatives home. We are working around the clock with our partners and allies to secure their freedom. And importantly, in amongst my other regional calls, I spoke specifically with the Emir of Qatar yesterday on this very issue, which we discussed at length. The Qatari government is taking a lead and working intensely to help release hostages using their contacts in the region, and we are working very closely with them to ensure the safe return of the British hostages.
It's interesting there where, because you said that they hadn't referred back to the event which started all this, what, week and a half ago now, the Hamas terror attack in Israel. He said that Hamas and Hamas alone is responsible for this conflict.
Yeah, I think if, 48 hours ago, that would have been Starmer's opening question and statement. And he was right to pivot to the hospital. But clearly that's the sort of strong message that he wanted to get across there. And I think the language was very evocative, talking about people, mutilated and slaughtered. And I think that phrase, unimaginable agony, is a good one from Starmer. He kind of... the criticism of Jeremy Corbyn was not just that he had things politically wrong a lot of the time, but that when it came to anti-Semitism, that he had no empathy for people who were suffering and felt that they were, marginalised and attacked. And I think a lot of people who knew Corbyn sort of said he couldn't really comprehend why all, the Jewish people were sort of victims. In his mind, they were wealthy and, white, a lot of them, and not sort of traditionally what he would see as the sort of victims of society. Starmer really doing his best to show we understand what you're feeling here. Yeah. He's got a lot of people in his party who would have talked to him about that. And then, he's got a seat in North London and he knows those communities. Yeah. The other thing I thought was obviously interesting is that Starmer's seen the families of the hostages before the Prime Minister.
Oh, sorry, yeah.
And that is, a little bit of a coup. And I think Starmer did a very good job of, Sunak kind of repeated some of the phrases and, he's the Prime Minister, but Starmer sounded...
Starmer asking the questions and Sunak answering, but it does feel like Starmer's sort of taking the lead on this.
I think he sounded every bit like a Prime Minister in the questions he asked.
And so Rishi Sunak was talking about making regional calls. There were some suggestions last night that Rishi Sunak might go to Israel at some point. Have you heard any more about that?
I would be surprised if he's not there before the end of the week. But, I think for security reasons, people would prefer it if we didn't say anything more than that. But my understanding is that is very likely.